also the format that we try to follow every week. We don't usually follow it.
And Rodney Rodriguez.
Entertain me. Tell me something. I need to know something other than what I'm seeing.
Y'all ready? All right, here we go.
Here's Bobby and Rodney.
What's your 20? About 16 miles this side of Mississippi. Whoa, hold it. I just passed another Kodiak with a Kodak. This place is a problem with bass. Where the hell are you? Come back. I'm still trying to get rid of that Texas County Mountie. I don't know what the hell he wants. You know what he wants. I mean, how would you like to be the dude that handcuffs a legend? Listen, give me 5 minutes. We're going to put some moves on that mother. I'll meet you at Ole Miss. Well, you better hurry or we can just kiss that money goodbye. You understand that? I'll read you loud and clear. 10-4.
There it is, Bobby. We were all ready for 10-4, and then the Facebook broke.
I actually emailed you early for that.
What's that?
I emailed you early for that, too. Like, hey, don't forget today's 10-4.
Yeah, I mean, we were all set to go, and I mean, what a mess. I knew something was up, and that's the whole thing. I mean, welcome to the show. We're a day late. It's actually 10-5, but we had to have that little CB presentation right there. And, of course, if we're going to do CB lingo, you've got to go to the 1977 classic that is Smokey and the Bandit, because it does not get any better than that. But man, what a day, man. It's like the whole world quit yesterday.
It is funny how much you're connected to social media when you had, and the lucky part about some of the people, if you think about it in terms of Bubba Wallace winning, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing that social media was crashed for him to pick up his first NASCAR Cup Series win.
Yeah, and the thing was, I mean, because I know a lot of folks were like, I got calls, whatever. Are you still going to do the show? And it's like, yeah, we're going to do the show, but I mean, we have to figure out ways to tell people that to get to the other spots, because there's lots of different ways to watch this show, and it's when the big one gets taken out. I mean, it's really hard to get people over, and I know 51 had to cancel the bull ring too. So yeah. When the old Facebook breaks down, man, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Actually, it is a very good thing. Oh, and let's go back over here. It actually is a very good thing, because people were actually probably able to get work done.
I was able to get quite a bit of stuff done. Although you started using your other platforms like your Twitter and some of your other ones, I would know I was able to catch up on some Twitter roll, stuff like that. But yeah, it was definitely different not having social media up fired around yesterday.
Yeah. Not necessarily a bad thing. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just moving forward, everybody. RevvedUpSportsShow.com. I mean, that really is the place where you can go. You can catch this thing on a live audio feed. You can catch this live cast. I mean, the video is there. The live cast up at the top. Just click right there. Go a little bit further down. If you don't want to see our beautiful faces, you can catch just the audio part. But it is RevvedUpSportsShow.com. Next time that the Facebook crashes on a Monday, we're not moving. We're not moving, because this is causing a pretty big problem in my household, because I told the wife, Bobby, I said, so we're going to have to do the show on Tuesday because we had some technical problems. And so she said, but how are we going to watch A Bachelor in Paradise? That's Tuesday. And it's the finale. It's the finale tonight. So
that's not good.
Had to record it. I'm going to record it because I know that our folks needed to hear Chris Davidson at 7:30 and Casey Smith at 7 as the Texans go out. And once again, not a lot of asphalt racing, but our Texans sure do kick some ass when they go out and race some pavement.
They do. Not lots of good representation there for the two gentlemen that will be joining us on the show tonight. So it looks like it's a good. Once the weather finally cooperated there in Pensacola, it seems like Pensacola's had two different issues: weather and tires. Hopefully they all finally lined up the other day to make it happen.
Yeah, it got to be a real mess that I saw, man, because it apparently got pretty bad at some point thereafter. That looked pretty rough. Looked pretty rough out there. But hoping for all the best for everybody down there. But they did get the Night of Champions in, and we start moving forward. Time for Snowball. It's getting close.
It's getting closer. The joys of the time of the year with the Snowball Derby is going to be exciting. Going to be fun to have the Derby stuff back. But we still got a long way to get there. It's only the first week in October coming up here, so we got to get through Halloween first. I don't usually start getting excited about the Derby till after Halloween. I like getting geared up for Halloween first because you got a couple of big money races here in Texas. Kind of reminds me of the old Oktoberfest days when we used to get real excited to go to San Antonio. which used to be the last big show, was
was it.
Oktoberfest in San Antonio, and then you knew you were done. But yeah, it's I mean, I love the Derby and I love the concept. I hadn't even bought the tickets yet. I guess I need to look into that.
You know, I have to say, one of the things that I'm glad that not glad that we got delayed, but I found out today, I saw that our man Jason Batt finished 13th in the nation in IMCA stock cars. So we wouldn't have known that yesterday, I don't think, because I just saw that today. So there again, there's the beauty of this IMCA stock cars. I mean, these guys, they can go everywhere. How about that? The Batman, the Acrobat. And I mean, one of the best, and he does it again. And I mean, what a great platform for these guys to get to race on.
I think the IMCA National Points is one of those things where it's kind of like it's the 800-pound elephant in the corner of the room, where you have the guys. Why did you want to do IMCA? Why do you want to buy the IMCA stamp parts? Why do you want to play for the IMCA sanction and the license and all of that stuff? When it comes time to the end of the year, I don't know what the top 13 pays. I know the top 10 get a lot of good bonuses, especially for sure on the national scale, but it's nice to see. I'm sure he's up there with the Texas points and the regional points for sure. So it'll be interesting to see what all shakes out in his handbasket when he gets ready to come to the pay window here towards the end of 2021.
You got the big race coming up this weekend over at the Cotton Bowl, where that's, extra money, all of that's factored in there. You got the DTK race coming up at 37. So we're definitely into big race season, and you folks chime in with all the big races that you're going to be going to and just everything that's happening with that. But a good weekend of racing. I mean, they got after it. Lone Star 600. I mean, that's always a good thing, and we'll pop up here. We've got about the top 50 or so. You can check out the graphic there. But, Lawrence Miklicek, man, night number one. Lawrence wins. I mean, I'm like, okay, there you go. Biggest race, and it happens in Texas. It's fitting that Lawrence wins on night number one.
Yeah, definitely was good. He said it was the biggest victory of his career. I don't know if it'd be the biggest victory of his career, much less it's probably the highest paying win of his career, winning the $10,000 there on Friday night. So that probably paid for quite a bit of stuff over the years. So that, maybe it was. I mean, 300 laps at an enduro, that's a pretty big deal, but it's definitely probably more money than he's made.
That's a whole lot. And night number two, it is Randy Seals that wins there, but there's everybody right there. And it really is a combination of you have to perform on both nights, and the guys, up at the top of that. I mean, they it's definitely that is a whole different scope to enduro. And I remember being a kid, I ran an enduro 250, at 14, at the age of 14. I've talked about it on here before. Dad threw me in a car. He's like, going out there and race. Leroy Farmer won that race, and there's all these people passing me. I think I wound up like 24 laps down. They ran 250. I ran 224. But to see these guys out there racing, it is just a great way to start a career that took a 10-year pause and started racing again after that point. But to see a race of that magnitude happening right here, and you have folks coming from all over the country that show up to Devil's Bowl. And once again, Brad Dixon and those folks, I mean, what a kick-ass job of putting just a great show together.
They really did. And the weather actually ended up cooperating. I know there was the question midweek as to what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Is it going to rain? Is it going to rain? Luckily for us, when the weather forecasters say it's going to rain, not always do they get it right. A lot of times they get it wrong. So that's a good thing in terms of, trying to put the weather forecasters to bed on some of this stuff. But of course, there's been times that we found out it's not going to rain a lick, and then boom, the only thunder shower pops up right over the racetrack. But so we've been on both sides of the arrow there. But it's it was a really good show. The stuff I got to peek at with the Race on Texas coverage was pretty good. It's just I've only announced one enduro. And it's a little rough because you're trying to keep up with how many laps to go, and you're not supposed to tell anybody how many laps to go, and it's a little rough there. So hopefully that icebreaker there, or the big chill coming up at Heart of Texas, will be pretty fun at the beginning of the year.
Oh man, and that'll be fun. That's early part of February, and just think about that. I mean, you're going to have all those cars out there on that quarter mile. I mean, guys that have been off for a month, I guess. What's dirt off? A month, 6 weeks.
Something like that.
So yeah, they'll congregate over at Heart of Texas and get after that. That will be a very good time. That's coming up in February. Lots of big races coming up there in between, and it starts this weekend at Cotton Bowl, as they will get after that, and they'll settle factory stock, power rankings, all of that. All of that will begin to take shape. Thoughts once again to Owen. I know that he's still working through some stuff there. Thoughts to Owen and the Pittman family, and then, man, how about that news of John West Townley? And that one just continues to get more interesting the more that I see, as stories begin to come out. Man, that was not a good situation.
It doesn't sound like it. Sounds like it was a bachelor party or a pit pass party or some kind of party run wrong. When you end up having two people shot when yourself and your girlfriend get shot, that's never a good sign that something went like it was supposed to, for sure.
Yeah. I saw something today where, he may have shown up with an axe, and that's never a good way to show up to a party. Maybe show up with an X, but not an axe. That's a huge difference right there, because anyway, thoughts and prayers there, John West Townley. He had his moments there in the Truck Series. There's some comical moments there, and I see a lot of folks jumping on social media. That's where kind of yesterday I was thinking about that, because yesterday that social media was broken, and we did have Twitter going on, and it was a combination of things yesterday, kind of with the Facebook thing, because I'm like, okay, number one, let's leave Bubba Wallace alone. I don't care. He did a hell of a job yesterday. He's a winner. That's all that counts. Bobby, you and I were going back and forth. Nobody said anything about Chris Buescher winning a rain race. So Good for him. Good for McDoon-Dunes. Good for Jordan. Good for all of those people. But the same thing here with Townley. It's like, okay, we've lost this guy. Let's kind of back off of trying to be comedians.
Yeah, there's usually a good time and a bad time for the jokes and stuff like that. The stuff about Townley and some of his different type of extracurricular activities there in the Truck Series, a couple of fist fights and stuff like that, and even just some of the lack of success there.
Sure.
Kind of leads to the old adage about racing daddy's money and stuff like that. And so now it's not the time to bring that up. Now it's time to think about the family in terms of what they're going through right now with the loss of one of the key family members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll have to get through that. So that's going to be a very tough time. So, yeah, shocking news. And, that's one of those things where it's funny when we see it so often in racing. We see it with the other sports as well, where it's like somebody kind of fades off of the radar. You don't hear that name very often. And then the next thing you know, you see a name and it's like, they've passed away. And that's really tough. That's really tough. So hopefully everything, that's a tough deal. That's a tough deal. But again, as we said, big thoughts and prayers there to Owen and everything that they're going through there as well. So Bobby, is this? So I was thinking about this the other day. So we get to the end of like the regular programs. The weekly stuff or bi-weekly or once a month, whatever the hell we do now. That stuff starts to end, but it's a little bittersweet, isn't it? Because now we get to the big shows. You mentioned the big shows earlier, and is it more exciting now? It sucks because you can't go every week, but I wish we raced this time of year. Because I know it's tough with football, but it's like now is when I want to go to the track and stay all day because, hell, it's cool. I'm older now than I used to be. When I was in my 20s, yeah, whatever, let's go stay there all day. But now it's cool, and this is a great time to be racing, especially with big shows.
I think that it becomes bittersweet. I think that the big shows serve their purpose, right? They're designed to get the best of the best from all these tracks at the end of the year. Together to run for big time money and big time shows. We saw it for years. The asphalt one was the Texas Stock Car Spectacular. The first one that Brian and Irvin did down in Corpus in 95, I think, 95, 96,
yes,
right
sir.
in there.
95. Sixth place finisher right here in the hobby stocks.
That's right. That's right. So we
I briefly led that
we were
race.
used to it.
Briefly led that
You
race.
did. You did.
Like for
I remember being there.
One lap.
Hey, but that was a big show because that was everybody.
Oh yeah.
We talked about that
huge.
race there before with the big show that they had. That race had every single body that was anybody in the asphalt world of racing there. Hell, I think even Johnny Walker come out and run that race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had one of them fancy old Trans Am, that new body style. He had that fancy one, if I'm not mistaken. No. That was Lynch. Lynch had that. I'm thinking of 72, but yeah. These big shows, they're so cool. We've talked about the Miller Nationals and everything on here before. And, this really is big race season. And, people come head hunting and they want to, I'll answer that question here in just a minute. But, they come out and they want to run these big races. And you see folks that start traveling and Although it's rougher now because I mean the big money shows up, and that makes it tougher for some of the regular folks. But it's still, I mean, with these big events like the Clash. I remember last year the Clash at Texana. That was so badass. That was such a badass event.
It was. There was a lot of really good talent, and a lot of people came from a lot of long ways away to race that event. And the Clash is still set to go on. I think it's going on November 20th. I think is the day of the Clash. Still pending on the calendar down there, but the big shows are so unique now because the problem is now you have guys that they're the equivalent of headhunters, right? They decide they only want to hit the big money shows, and they'll come through and they'll sweep 3 or 4 shows. Not that that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing by no means. The fact that some people come through and try to sit there and annihilate the field and take all the big money home, but it crushes the heart and soul of the local guy who's like, even if it's one of the big shot local guys, it crushes the heart and soul of that guy when he comes in and gets out cashed and outrun.
Yeah. I remember guys would like sit out a season. I mean, they couldn't race or whatever, and they'd show up for whatever the big race may have been, and they would be really competitive because they saved their stuff. Maybe they cheated it up just a little bit, or I mean, whatever the case was. But it was a big deal. But yeah, it's really tough. And I mean, the same thing. I mean, we're over on the pavement side. I mean, we're on the road to Snowball. I mean, all of that is going to start, and it's just it's an exciting time. But it's like I always say, I always hated. When we get to playoff time in football, I mean, like when the NFC Championship, AFC Championship, when you get to that Sunday, there's so much excitement. People love it. It's going to be probably the best games of the year, and you're all fired up about it. And I'm like, well, yeah, I am too. But it sucks because in 2 weeks, football season's done, and that's kind of what I think now when we get to these local shows and local tracks. And it's like, okay, we're about to be done, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think you notice it too when football in general starts. When the college football season goes, you're like,
Yeah.
there we go. It's big money time. That means the race season's almost over. I mean, the fact that the Clash runs in November is kind of strange. You would figure that the Clash would run no later than Halloween, or at least the first weekend there in November. So that I think that it's the last big show that people get a chance to go to before they end up having to take the off season off and start rebuilding their stuff for the races that kick back off in February.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Because they do, like you just said. I mean, they start early. I mean, these guys, I mean, they get fired off and they go. I mean, South Texas, what was that? Weren't they running in mid-February, wasn't it, this past season?
Mid-February, yeah. One time I want to say there was a January race down at South Texas Speedway, an XR race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, thank you all for last week's show. I mean, applauding us for what a great program that was. We didn't do shit. We just talked to Cody Brusso. That's all we did. That's all we did. I mean, she was the show. I mean, it's not Bobby and I. It's people that come on the show like Casey at 7 and Chris Davidson at 7:30. I mean, they're the ones that make this show. And yes, that was definitely a good one. And I've had some communication there with Cody after, and yeah, she enjoyed it. So she was pleased to be given just an open forum, and that's what this show is. #Real Race Talk. You just let it fly. I mean, we're sitting here drinking beer, just talking racing. That's what we do.
That's what we do. That's what we're known for now, all over the Southeast, and even up thanks to Phil, starting to get some headway. Starting to get some headway up to the north, up there in the northern land up there. But we're chugging along, so to speak. Cheers to everybody that comes and enjoys the beers with us here on Facebook and or YouTube. Don't forget about YouTube. That one's always up and running. Generally, if Facebook is up and running, that means that YouTube should have been up and running. So
yeah, guys. So seriously, RevvedUpSportsShow.com, RevvedUpSportsShow.tv, RealRaceTalk.com. There's multiple video streams that are actually going right now. I mean, everybody congregates to Facebook because it's easier, and that's great. I mean, that's where we started. But there are lots of different ways, and I think probably the best thing to do would put something together that we can post on Facebook that, in case Facebook is closed, here's where you go. I mean, we're actually streaming live on Twitter right now at my page, at the Rodney R. You can actually go on there, and it's going live right now. So just everywhere. All right, Jeremy, I'm going to answer that question for you. And I'm not putting it off, to think of an answer, but here's the deal. So, yes, you saw the last Houston race was not actually canceled. Here's the situation. There was not actually... The plan was to run a makeup date. That was always the plan, from the get-go because of the weather and everything that happened. Knocked out a couple of dates right there. There was not a date in place, and there was not a date that could be secured because, as we've talked about on here, that is a fully functional business. That drag race track, they're going, and yes, they run Wednesdays, they run Saturdays, Sundays, just different times that Dean Baker is doing his thing right there. But it's operational all the time. And I think, Bobby, that's what people don't understand is it's not just a matter of let's just pick a date. Dean is running this place just as you would a normal business. His business is the drag racing, the drag strip.
Yeah, and the drag strip is when the drag strip in operation, that's what keeps that whole thing running around over there. That's why it's been such a successful place, especially now with the closing of Houston Raceway Park. All the other drag racers are going to get a chance to try to come down and run that eighth of a mile drag strip.
Yep.
So the challenge for 2022 is going to be trying to get even more dates. But I think the difference is everybody still remembers that as back when it was back in the John Mandebach days, where it's not quite as simple as it was because they were working together. When John was the general manager over both entities, the drag strip and the circle track, it made it easier to work with either both entities when you had the same man running both
Right.
entities. So
Right.
the fact that Gina's having to lease the facility, don't forget about that. Gina has
By
to
event.
lease that facility
By event.
per event. That's right.
Right. I'm sorry.
The fact that she has to lease that the facility out, that creates another challenge in its own right. That's why sometimes the races in Mobile make it a little bit easier because of the fact that there's not the drag strip and the speedway can both run at the same time.
Yeah.
That's not so much the case there in Houston.
Right. And it was a matter of not being able to secure another date. So the final race wasn't canceled. The final race ran. The final race on the schedule was 9/11. That was the race that was set. It was just a matter of not being able to get that date. Because things that are going to be going on right there. And then you get to the off season and it would be extremely tough to run a race. You don't want to compete with the Snowball Derby. You can't sit here and try to run a race at the end of November because you're going to get your ass kicked. Nobody's going to show up. It's Thanksgiving holiday. People aren't going to go because of Christmas. All of that is happening right there. That is what happened right there. It was you couldn't get the date. 2022, is there going to be racing there? That's the hope. I can tell you, I damn sure hope so because for Bobby, you and I there is not a track close to us. So yes, I love going to Mobile. It's great, but man, Houston. When I get to drive to Houston, I'm like, oh shit, man, this is nice. I could sleep the whole way and just put the car in cruise control. That's right up the road here from Austin. So it. Is there going to be racing there? Well, that's the plan, but hopefully the dates are going to be there to secure them, and that is totally out of the Gulf Coast Racing Series hands, Gina's hands, Bo's hands. It's a matter of trying to make that work with the ownership there. And again, the ownership there at HMP, and that's the difference. You got two entities. You got the Gulf Coast Racing Series and Houston trying to work together. Houston Motorsports Park makes a hell of a lot of money on drag racing. Oval track racing is not their number one, breadwinner right now.
Mm-hmm. It hadn't been for a long time. So it's definitely becomes a logistical challenge. So everybody kind of lay off Gina and Bo. It's not so much that they're not trying.
It wasn't canceled.
It wasn't canceled. It was never actually officially announced. The goal was to try to have one more race in October.
Sure.
That's what was said at the drivers' meeting, and the date got floated around. It's probably going to end up being October the 23rd, but that just didn't end up happening. Unfortunate circumstances with that, but it's one of those things. So now let's regroup. Let's try to support Mobile on the 30th when they race there in October. That is an Alabama off weekend.
Yeah.
So that gives them a chance to try to pack the stands one last time there in 2021, and let's stay positive about the hopes and the future of the Gulf Coast Racing Series running at Houston Motorsports Park in 2022.
Yeah. That's really the thing right there. It's not as easy as it used to be. In the old days, Marianne, the Thunderhill days, and then Tim. These folks, Alvin, when they ran these racetracks, you secured a lease and you had full control over. You signed a lease for the whole season, and you had full control over everything that you do there. And again, if I were Dean Baker, I would be doing the same thing. And it's not a slight that he's doing anything wrong. What he's doing is that he's operating his business, and for the oval track to fall into that piece, that's where that's where it gets to be, a little tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it's hopefully everything works itself out, but they, it just becomes it's just the realistic nature, right? We've talked about it all the times. The people that own the racetracks are the racetracks that are kind of being the most successful because you get a chance to invest in your own entity, your own stuff. So it's does Houston need a little work? Yeah, there's a few little things that need to be polished over there. Kind of like the driveway coming in with the potholes and stuff like that. But still, it's the only place we've got within a 12-hour drive.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be thankful that it's there, despite the fact it is 3.5 hours away from the house. It's still there and still in operation. So
I never really noticed the potholes until I'm leaving. When I get there, I have no problem. Getting out of there is the problem. It might be all those Mick Ultras that I'm sitting over there hanging around, Bud Lights, people stuffing that in my face. I seem to hit every pothole on the way out, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it seems like there are more on the way out than the way in, because at least in the daytime you can see them. At night they just kind of sneak up on you.
Yeah, something. Oh, okay. I like the way you did that. I like the way you did that better than what I was implying right there. But I mean, that's really the case right there. I mean, yes. I promise you. If it were possible, yes, the series would love to race at Houston, 10, 12, 15, 16 times. I mean, whatever the case would be. Yes. That would be a great goal to figure out. And the thing is, it comes down to a lot of that, like we said, renting that per event. That's even tougher. So there's money that factors in. And Patrick, my God, Patrick, where you been, dude? We just talked about this for 10 minutes. Did not cancel. There was never a date secured. And there's not a date that falls in line for them for us to be able to make that work. That's a funny thing. I get so many messages after this. It's like, why do you refer to them when you're like right in the middle of that? I'm like, oh yeah. It's like Jeff Gordon on the car races, on the NASCAR races when he's talking about Hendrick. I bet his stuff gets blown up, but there's just not the date there. So hopefully, and I can tell you, and Bobby, you know this as well as I do, they are working like mad men and women on the vaccines to try to get those. We want to race in Texas. We want to race in Texas, and that's the ultimate goal.
I think it is. I think that it's still there. Obviously, when you think about the fact that Bo and Gina and 3/4 of that group are from either Central Texas or the greater Houston area, the goal to race in Houston is still there. It's not an abandonment of Houston, as it is, like you said, it's a hell of a lot easier to race in the backyard than it is to try to go all the way out to Mobile. We love the track. It's an okay drive when traffic is not horrible going over the Mississippi River Bridge, but it's a struggle to get out there sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's always a struggle to get out there. That's why I go the easy way over it. But that's going to be the goal right there, and just stay tuned. And the series is going to do everything that we can to get a schedule put together. Is it going to be 4 races? Is it going to be 8? Is it going to be 10? Is it going to be 12? I don't know. And that's the tricky part, is it's not totally in our control. If we could dictate that, yeah, hell, we'd probably run 16, 17 times, but it's just not the case.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not the case. It's not as easy as what it seems on the outside. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work that a lot of people don't know, and a lot of people sometimes don't care about, which is unfortunate. Because it all matters at the end of the day. Well,
and that's why I always say on race weeks that we have had at Houston, that's why I'm like, okay, yeah, it's great to tag HMP because we're racing at HMP, but please tag Gulf Coast Racing Series because it's two working together. So let's give that series some love. But anyway, we can have more discussions about that, and we can actually talk to this dude that's on the Revved Up Sports Show hotline, because I'm sure that he'd have some thoughts on all of this. But right now, the only thought about him is this dude back on track, goes to Pensacola and wins at that place. That's one of those places. And thank you for making yourself available on 10-5 instead of 10-4 on the hotline. It is Casey Smith. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing really good this week, and thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
So Casey, how'd it feel to get the monkey off your back and finally pick up the W there in Pensacola, man?
Oh man, you have no idea. pressure that I put on myself to win there. It's like we've come so close, and we've really come probably closer at winning more derbies than we have blizzard races. We've led so many laps there, and in a few blizzard races we broke leading or got wrecked on late restarts and destroyed cars on late restarts there, and that place is one of those places that you love to hate, and I definitely didn't want to go my whole career without winning a super race there, and just the car was on a rail. But man, the competition is so tough. There's so many people have just identical equipment as far as you're getting whatever you can afford and whatever you know is the best, and you're just really small adjustments away from being good all night, or being good for a few laps, and then turning to going from leading to trying to stay on lead lap. And that's what we did last time. We had a really good car, qualified third, and blistered the right front with about 25 to go or so, and got wrecked. But luckily we got wrecked then because we were about to blow out a right front. So and then this time we were really good, and the tire stayed under it, and just changed the setup up just very small, and it was good for 100 laps.
Man, that is awesome. So let's dial it back a little bit for you. So to jump back in the super, I mean, I know when I saw that you were getting another super, I'm like, man, that's so cool. I mean, to have you back in those cars. But let's talk about the modified stuff. I mean, for you to get out there and race with the modifieds, man, those things, ultra competitive. I mean, I don't care if it's Houston, Pensacola, any of those places, man. How fun are those cars compared to these badass supers?
Well, I mean, really, they're probably harder to drive. A good modified is harder to drive than a good super. You're on little 8-inch tires, and you have real close to the same horsepower, and they're lighter. So, and they don't have the downforce.
Yeah.
They're a handful for sure, and that's something that took me a few races to get used to with those things with the 8-inch tires. Is just trying to learn, even in a 50 lap race, that you still got to manage your tires, and that modified, luckily when we got it figured out, it has been really good, and we won the first race there this year at Pensacola, and we haven't really raced it since, just trying to focus on the late model and be as competitive as we can with it.
Right on.
So Casey, you kind of led into it with the super late models being the same. I mean, how is everybody really close to having these super late model, like unilateral cars? Not so much an IROC car, but I mean, like you said, everybody can afford the best of the best stuff. Is it literally coming down to just the right set of shocks, the right air pressure, just that fine-tuned stuff to get these cars on the rails and compete and win down there?
Well, everybody's there's really, like, down south, there's 3 major chassis manufacturers, and then up north you've got a few more, with Van Dorn and Fort City being a little more prominent up there. But down south it's Seneca, Hamke, and Fury, and that's pretty much what everybody has. And really, it's just, I know the Senecas, I'm just not smart enough to figure those out. That's what Chris Davidson runs, and they got to run on 4 bump stops, and I have a hard enough time trying to figure out 2. But I mean, they've kind of opened up the motor package a little bit, so you've got several different motor options you can run, and that's something that we really focused on building this car, is with Dwayne McGonigal, is building a Ford parts motor that's going to be real easy on the tires, but has plenty of power and pulls all the way down the straightaway. And that's one thing that's kind of, I think, helping me. And you just got to try to find every edge you can. Brandon Ernest brought a set of shocks over towards the end of practice, said, "Hey, throw these on there and see what you think." And they were a 10th. And that's what me and Roderick had on the car, is we both had a new set of rear shocks that he brought down for the weekend, and we finished 1-2 with them. So
Nice.
It's just trying to, and Cody Glick, I work with him real well, and everybody at Hamke, The cars are just so technical. I mean, if you're looking at that car, you're basically, I mean, Kyle Busch's engineers designed it. Chris Gabehart's the one that designed that car, and now
Nice.
he's, crew chief of Denny Hamlin.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's just so many fine details that 5-6 years ago you just kind of overlooked. And it's like, oh, it's short track, it won't matter. But you got to try to get every advantage you can, and that's what Hamke really tries to take advantage of. And it's the old saying that Glenn Swaby used to tell my dad:
Oh.
"Speed costs money. How fast do you want to go?"
Yeah, man, what a name, Glenn Schwabi drop. I love that, man. That was one of my first favorite guys when he was in the '88 car, there for Waldo. I mean, hey, man, good stuff. Oh my goodness. So Casey, you kind of so let's talk about that. I mean, the progression of the super late model. I mean, you've won the Southern Super Series title before. Man, it's changed. It has changed, man. It's just like everything else.
We won the championship in 2015, won 2 races, and we had a Port City car then. And like I said, heck, that car had, I think, 50 pounds of lead on it, and now this new car I've got close to 400 pounds of lead on it. And it's just, like I said, it's just every fine detail you can't overlook, because the next guy's gonna lap up on it. And you're like, I qualified 7th Saturday night, and I was 300ths off a third and a little over a 10th off the pole.
Yeah.
But I think all the way down to like 25th was 3/10. And if you just slip a little bit, you're especially like at the Derby, you're out of the field. But usually at the Derby there'll be like 5 cars, that's got everybody by a 10th or so, and then they'll be from like 5th to 20th will be within the same 10th bracket. And
Crazy.
And you just really got to be on your game, and really it's luck. I mean, it's kind of luck of the draw, is trying to figure out a good package between sway bars and bump stops, and 16th backers are big, and just trying to figure out, like for us, we're impound at qualifying, so trying to figure out something that's going to qualify good, because you definitely want to qualify in the top 8 and get in that draw so you can stay out of trouble all night, and then something that's going to race good for a full 100 laps. And that's something that took me a few races to kind of get used to again with this car, is just figuring out something that'll qualify good and stay with us for 100 laps.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily we got lucky and found that on Saturday night. But everybody, Bubba Gill called me yesterday. He said, "Hey, how big's your head right now?" I said, "I'll tell you how big it is. It's the same size it looks, because I don't know if it looks big or not, but I can tell you, I'm not up on a high horse, because we may go to the Derby with that exact same setup, exact same car, and not make the race. I've been there and done that before."
Yes, sir. Oh my goodness. Oh man, that's crazy. That is crazy.
So Casey, talk about bump stops here. There's got to be some people, because every time we talk to these super late model guys and pro late model guys, everybody talks about the bump stop. And from my understanding, it goes all the way back to go-kart days, where there wasn't any kind of travel in the shocks or anything like that. So explain the bump stops to me without giving away all your speed secrets.
Well, honestly, the things drive like go-karts now. I mean, they you want them obviously as low to the ground as you can get the center of gravity down. And you're trying to keep the contact patch of the tire not moving on the race car, because anytime the contact patch on the tire moves, it's scrubbing, and taking grip away.
Yeah.
So that's a fine line too, because you can vary, 300 pounds on a bump spring. The car's got the same load over there, but it loads the tire differently at different points on the racetrack, and you still got to go over the bumps good.
Mm.
So especially with these tires, they're real temperamental on not overworking them, because they're so fresh right now when we're getting them. I was talking to the Hoosier guy, and the lefts were like 3 days old when they brought them down there, and their right sides were like a week and a half old, they said.
Damn.
So they don't have time to cure right now. And so you really got to it's a fine line on getting speed and then also not over abusing the tire. But yeah, that's the thing. And you know, stuff that used to work on cars 20 years ago, you know, throw a bigger right rear spring in it to make it turn better. Sometimes we'll tighten it up now, or it's all about how you're loading different corners of the car and the attitude of the car. You just want to keep the platform consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, those tires, man, that's fresh out of the oven right there. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
goodness, man. What?
So, they came over to me and they said, your right front was marginal. You had about 10 laps left on it. And I said, yeah, luckily it was a 100 lap race, not a 110 lap race. But, and there's some people that had to pull off because they blistered. But, it's definitely, a lot of people are bashing Hoosier right now, and they're doing everything they can do. It's the same with everything in the world right now, just trying to get materials and then also trying to keep the labor force. And with COVID this year, they didn't know how much racing was going to be going on, so they didn't make during the winter they didn't have opportunity to make up enough tires. And I got to thank them for getting us tires. Sometimes I wish that. When you don't run good, it's easy to point fingers, and I've been on that end of it. And of course, right now I won, so I'm happy with them.
Great tires,
exactly.
Best tires ever. Best tires ever. So, Casey, it kind of sounds like to me. I mean, I hate to bring up memories that kind of break my heart here because you took a couple of dwarf car races from me a few years back. But I mean, do these things drive like dwarf cars? I mean, it kind of sounds like they're kind of bouncy and kind of a little radical there, just trying to hold on to this thing with those tires.
No, I'll be honest with you. They're real rigid, but they drive like Cadillacs right now.
Nice.
When the cars get, when you get 100 laps on your tires, you're definitely kind of on top of the racetrack. But a super late model, when I got in this Hansky car for the first time, I said, wow, I know what I've been missing here for a few years here, because this thing's like driving a Cadillac. I mean, it's got a carbon seat and everything in it. And I mean, I'm not lying. It feels like I'm in a Corvette or something out there, especially on new tires. And it kind of make you feel like a hero there for a few laps.
Nice. That's awesome.
So, Casey, talk about the race itself. Obviously, a lot of people just watched that race from the highlights on Speed 51, and it seemed like you were up on that wheel, and it seemed like it came to you pretty fast. Did the race come to you as easy as it looked like on some of those highlights, or was there a lot of extra work involved to try to get to the front?
No, honestly, the car was really good. We qualified 7th, drew 6th, and I guess 3rd place, spun his tires pretty good there on the start, so we were able to get down and get to I think 3rd, like right off the bat, 3rd or 4th right off the bat, and so that helped a lot. And then Hunter Robbins was the next car. He was a little bit snug, and I got by him. And then Roderick was kind of trying to save his tires, and he was pretty tight. And so my car was turning really, really good. And I really wasn't. I was kind of wanting to ride behind Roderick because, he's had so much success there, and I kind of knew I haven't raced a late model there that much, in the past 3 or 4 years. So I just kind of wanted to ride behind him because I knew he knew how hard to run, but the car was so good. I passed him, and then Jake Garcia, he was kind of setting sail. I said, man, I'm not going to run that hard right now.
Yeah.
And then I think he might have hurt his right front or something. He was running so hard, and we chased him down and passed him. And then Mark Biles was just one heck of a spotter, and he was telling me lap times of what they were running behind me the whole race. And I was basically, once I got a pretty comfortable lead, I was trying to kind of just mirror their lap times to be able to save my tires, but kind of make them try to use theirs up a little bit to try to keep up with me and catch me. But I also was trying to save a little bit, in case we had a late caution, which I was praying there the last 10 laps. I'm like, please don't let us get a late caution here.
I bet.
And luckily we didn't. And but yeah, I think the Roderick guy was in a couple car lengths of me there in some lap traffic, and I got clear of him pretty good and took off, and he was kind of running about a tenth better than me. And then he said it's like he flipped a switch and his right rear was gone. So I guess I might have made him use it a little harder than he wanted to try to catch me, which I was fortunate. But that strategy can also backfire on you.
Sure.
I've seen Bubba Pollard win a lot of races there, and he's sitting there riding around, fifth or sixth all night, and then gets a caution late, and he's got, his tires are in a lot better shape than the guys that have run kind of like I did. But just kind of try to play it out, and if your car is real good and you can go lead, I think that's the best thing to do. It keeps you out of trouble, keeps clean air, and you can kind of manage the race yourself, and they kind of make them run your race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were chasing, and I mean that's the thing. That, as I was watching that, I mean they were burning their stuff up, and of course you had with Robbins and Roderick. I mean you had maybe there with the 18 car. There may be some history right there, but
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't think there's any love lost, and I think Roderick both of them let that be known there in their interview. And
yeah,
I was talking to Casey after the race and Tech, and he's like, I drove for Ronnie Sanders for 3 years, and he told me, in fact, I got in trouble. Somebody got into me, and I didn't go dump them the next corner. So if he has a problem with it, he needs to come talk to me because he's the one that taught me to do it.
Yeah. I was sitting there watching that race, Casey, and when I saw that it was the 18 and the 25, I'm like, we got it. We got it. We're going to be totally fine because these two are going to be racing each other. But so Casey, your thoughts on the supers? I mean, there's been so many discussions. I mean, they're doing well, over on the West Coast. I mean, you got guys like Jeremy Doss, and I mean, all these guys that are really good, and up in Wisconsin. I mean, there's a lot of that, of course, here along the Southeast, and I think that there's been a gloom and doom about super late models. But then again, I see a weekend like you guys just had out there with the Southern Super Series, and I think it's healthy. I think we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely need to try to figure out some way to cut costs. But the problem is, kind of like Richard Childress said, I wish NASCAR would quit trying to save me money because they're going to bankrupt me trying to do it. So it's just one of those deals to where it's just hard. Once people already have, a car, it's hard to go back and change the rules to try to save money. And I think that's one thing that's hurting like pro racing is they keep changing the motor rules like literally every few months. And like I was talking to Chris Davidson this weekend, he's like, I just wish they'd pick one motor. He said, I've got like 3 or 4 sitting on the floor because they change the motor rules all the time. And so that's one thing that supers, they're pretty consistent on the engine package right now. And, it's just sad to think about, back when we had the USRA and Romco and all that, we used to have 30, 35 supers, every time they raced, 10, 15 times a year down here. But, in North Carolina, the late models are kind of struggling. But then, like you said, you go up in the Midwest Tour and all, and they're getting plenty of cars every week. And the Southern Super Series seems to have a strong field most of the races this year, at least 15 to 20 cars. So I think they definitely need to work on trying to, figure out how they can cut costs without costing people money right now. And that's the biggest thing is these cars just cost so much money to buy and to maintain, and people just don't have that much money. And technology's so bad, so stiff and everything, trying to keep up with it and stay on top of your game. It's tough, but that's one thing that's good about like Hamke and Fury and Seneca is they help all their clients and try to keep them up on top of their game. That's but right. I definitely think like the Snowball, I'm sure they'll have 50 cars there, and I think it's as good as it's been in the past 5-6 years. It's definitely, of course, for us, down way south, we definitely don't have the racing like we wish, but that's just something that people got to keep supporting it. I remember, growing up, there was ups and downs after PIDA.
Yep.
Before Romco came around, the late models kind of disappeared. Southern Super Series is doing a really good job of having big paying races. I think Nashville is going to pay I think 20,000 to win
That's
or
what I saw.
something for All American, and then the Derby they announced this weekend is going to pay a little bit more than it's been paying. So it's trying to do that's going to definitely help, and then paying on down. But I think a standard Southern Super Series race pays 5,000 or 6,000 to win, and then sometimes they give bonuses if you ran your previous race, another $5,000 bonus, and so that's definitely helping car count, and it helps people keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Casey, you talked about the Derby a couple of times. What's left on the rest of your calendar? Are you going to try to run the All-American 400, maybe even the Winchester 400 coming up? Or are you just going to put the sights on and try to get that elusive Derby win for you?
We're going to try to go. We're planning on going to the All-American 400. I want to win that race as bad as I want to win the Snowball Derby. I love that place, and it's Freddie Query, I think, won that thing like 4 times and never won the Derby, but I definitely want to go there and have a good showing, and then we'll run the Derby. We're not going to run Winchester, but that's the 2 races we got planned out for this year, and then next year hopefully we can hit as many Southern Super Series races as we can, and then just continue on. I'd love to go to California and run that Winter Showdown or something that they have.
Yeah.
But that's the plan for now.
Yeah, that's cool. So Casey, lastly, let me ask you, man. To win the race, that's great. But I saw you in victory lane. I think I got a little emotional there with you as well. How cool to win that race. We all know, we all love Kathy. For you to get that one, you get that one knocked off, you win that race. But just with everything that you guys have been going through, how cool was that?
It was really cool. She supported my racing since I was 5 years old, and stayed back and helped run the business so me and Dad could go racing for all these years. And then I know she really wishes she could go to the races right now, but she's been pretty sick, and she's fighting hard, and she's gonna win. I know that, and it was just so good to get that win because both my mom and dad have supported me through thick and thin. When I am frustrated and think I'm washed up, they're the ones telling me to get over it and go to work and keep digging, and it'll come again. But it was definitely emotional to be in victory lane knowing she's at home watching and not feeling good. But the doctors are doing everything they can do, and she's fighting hard, and she's gonna prevail. I know it.
Yeah. That was the best part of the night. That was the best part of the night. Dude, way to go, man. It was such a good feeling to sit there and watch you get out there and just put it on him, man. Dominating performance, and looking forward to Snowball and the rest of this season, brother. Thanks for jumping on our delayed show on 10-5.
Well, thank you for having me. It means a lot to be on. Y'all do a great job, and hopefully that's the first of many to come with this car, and we've got a little something figured out, hopefully. But like I said, this deal's tough, and you got to enjoy them while you can get them, but also be thinking about the next one because you're only as good as your last race. That's
right. You win that Snowball. I'm going to put you on the record here. You have to come on the next day. So win the Snowball, jump back on again.
I will be glad.
Hometown show. Absolutely. Way to go, man. We'll talk to you down the road, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Thank y'all.
You bet. Take care. There he is, Casey Smith. And that was a long time coming for him to just win that race. And that, he's won so many races. He's so accomplished, and winning Southern Super Series, that championship in 2015, but he hadn't won there. And it's a big ass deal to win there. That is a huge deal to win at that racetrack.
I think it's just because of the contract or whatever they have with Speed 51 and Pensacola. But when they made the moniker America's Home Track, when they started calling Pensacola that, I think that they really hit on something. when you think about in terms of the popularity of the Blizzard series, the popularity of the Southern Super Series, and the success that those two series have, independent of each other to a certain extent. The going in and winning in any kind of super late model race in Pensacola, whether or not obviously the Derby is the pinnacle, but I think with as competitive it is, anytime you pick up a win at Pensacola in a super late model, it's a pretty big damn deal.
And that's a cool thing with Casey, because and I mean Glenn and Kathy, and I mean again we pray for Kathy. I mean keep fighting there, our friend. I mean they have been. I mean it's such a cool story. I mean there's times when I'm like I talked about with the dwarf car thing. There were a couple of nights that I wasn't the biggest fan of Casey. Because he would beat me. Sorry, Cody Brusso. Yes, we are ringing the Brusso bell there. We did ring it for Casey, but I mean, they keep him going. And, you know, he kind of slipped off the radar for a little bit. But for him to come back, to jump in that modified, and I think that's where he's done such a good job to just keep to just keep going. And I mean, he dominated Houston. I mean, he dominated Houston in that modified. And that's where I was sensing, okay, this dude isn't done. And I mean, what a great story for him to come and sneak away and dominate that race.
He really did. He really put an ass whooping on him. And it was good to see when the fellow Central Texan gets it done. That's when you know you have a good time.
Yeah, that's right. All right, back to the hotline. It was a Texas badass weekend there at Pensacola. I mean, so cool to watch from afar. We don't have racing here, but man, our guys, they just go off and they just keep winning races and championships. And I mean, this dude right here, I mean, this guy personifies badass, just like his dad. And we're super excited to welcome back to the hotline. It is the man himself, Christopher Davidson. How we doing, brother?
What's going on, guys?
They always say Christopher. It's funny when I talk to Greg, he mentions Christopher. I'm like, okay, I'm going to call him Christopher.
Yeah, there's like 10 people on the planet that use my given name. You're one of them.
Oh, nice. That's good to know.
So, Chris, when we talked to you last year after you won the championship, you were talking about that you wanted more wins, that you would give up the championship to have more wins on the season. Now that you won championships back to back, do you still feel the same way? Would you give them both up for more wins at Pensacola? Or are you happy knowing that you were the best overall guy for back-to-back seasons?
Well, I'd say we sure screwed that up because, yeah, the fact remains everybody'd rather win races than a championship. Much better to take a picture with a trophy girl than a fake check, right?
You got that right. and Chris, I thought that was so cool because you're on that big platform there, you know, talking to all these people, and you really did. I mean, it's just the way you are. I mean, I know you well. You totally downplayed the championship. You're like, yeah, okay, great, whatever. But it's got to be cool to put him, you know, back to back to win that pro late model championship out there.
Yeah, you're right. And I want to clarify, right? No disrespect,
right,
to winning the championship, right? But I'm just saying, given the choice,
right.
I'd trade one for the other, right? It's tough to win any championship. It's tough to win any race. You run a bomber at some little local track that nobody's ever heard of. It's hard to win races,
right?
So it's hard to win championships. So yeah, anytime you can accomplish any of that, I mean, it's definitely an accomplishment to be proud of, but if it's an either-or situation, we know what I'm picking.
I love how you said, we'll just head back to Texas. I'm like, okay. Good stuff, man. No, sorry.
So, Chris.
Go ahead, Bobby. I'm sorry.
My turn or your turn?
No, we got
sidetracked.
I jumped in. I was talking too much.
That's all right. It happens. So Chris, let's talk about the season as it is over in Pensacola. We were talking to Casey Smith earlier, and when we were talking about it, that anytime that you can win anything in Pensacola is pretty damn cool because it's basically turned into America's favorite short track, so to speak. I don't know if it's just because that's what Speed 51 has it kind of labeled as or what, but it just seems like everybody who is anybody in the super late model world is drawn to Pensacola. Is it the Derby effect, or is it really just that big of a deal to win races and championships in Pensacola?
So first, let's stop and say huge shout out to Casey for what he did Saturday, because that's a real racer that won a really difficult race to win. So nobody needs to forget all the cars that he beat on Saturday. That's a tough task for anyone. So for it to be somebody I happen to be friends with, Andy's from Texas, we should all be proud of that.
Yep.
Second off, it's, you said it, Derby effect. The track's difficult even without the Derby. It's hard to get around. It's never the same. You heard Casey say, he struggled last time. He won this time. He could win the Derby. He may not make the field, right? We all know that's the case. It's so hard to be consistent there. That's why when you see guys that are, you're like, man, what are they doing right that everybody else isn't doing? So I think it's mostly the Derby, but yeah, once you go there once, it's difficult and it defeats you. Nobody is successful on their first trip. So yeah, it makes it kind of like David versus Goliath for every student who pulls through the gate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. And Chris, talking about the pros, I do want to ask you. So obviously, you got these big races, the Alan Turner series and everything that happens there. I really like what Gina and Bo have done at Mobile. Your thoughts on they're running 30 lap pro, feature races. I mean, it's not a big race. It's a feature race. You get out there and you get to race. Gives guys an opportunity to get out there and race. Is that something, in your opinion, and I know you're totally unbiased, your opinion, that's good for pro late models to get out there and you get to go run damn feature race? It doesn't have to be, an Alan Turner race or something like that, one of these big pro late model races.
Well, what it does do, first off, Gina and Bo are not given near enough respect for the amount of work they're putting in. They've single-handedly saved racing, asphalt racing in Texas. And now look what they're doing, the same thing in Mobile. So first things first, the bashing and the disrespect that they get is absurd to me. Without them, there would be no racing. Sorry, you asked my opinion, you're going to get it.
Bring it.
30 lap races, guys got to get seat time, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you hear when you get in a race car. You change classes of race cars. Seat time, seat time, seat time. Where else are they supposed to get it? So to answer your question, yes. Is it something I want to do? No, I don't want to go run a 30-lap race. Is it beneficial to the racing program and the racers that are coming up that need the laps? Absolutely. I mean, anybody who, if they can make a field full enough or large enough to have a race, the fans don't care. The fans showed up to see racing.
That's right.
If they're anything like you two and me, we will stop and watch kids race little red wagons in a parking lot to see who wins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So late models at Mobile, pro late models, super late models, yeah, why not have them? I think it's really probably a good idea. Is it ever going to turn into, can they turn it into a local 30-car field every Saturday night? That's a tall order unless the purses go up and then you lose some of what you're talking about.
Right.
But it's a great proving ground, and you could almost even call it free, really good practice under race conditions, because you can practice your car all you want until you're around other cars at speed with temperature in the tires. It's hard to get the experience. And so if you can't take a brand new kid, well, I say that with a caveat. You can't take a brand new kid who didn't rent a ride or buy the whole deal and set him in a car at Pensacola and him be great on day one. They have to get laps somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So why not Mobile?
Yeah. Good point.
So, Chris, you talked about the respect that Bo and Gina deserves, and they really do. I don't think people do give them enough credit for trying to keep the dream alive in Houston and even rebuilding that dream down there in Mobile. But you were there at the last Houston race, and you put in your hard-earned money to help add some of the stuff to the purse. How important is it for you to be giving back to the racing community now, with as long as you and your dad's been involved in it?
Super important. So I've kind of made this mental shift, right? I still want to race, but it's how do we keep this going? How do we not let this die, right? You heard Casey say it. Cost, expense, money. All the way down to the lowest division at any track, you've almost priced out everybody. Look at the car counts. I mean, yeah, they're great in some places, but what do you see? Somebody owns a business. Somebody's uncle owns a business. Where are we missing the greatest race car driver that's ever lived? He's stuck somewhere sitting in the bleachers? Probably. Mm-hmm. So it's important to me to try to help, right? You've probably seen Davidson Electric on several different cars in the last year, right? That's me trying to give back. You see me with guys you wouldn't expect to see me with at the racetrack. That's me trying to pass on what knowledge I do have to try to help. I was fortunate my dad raced. I got a lot of the basics. I had somebody to ask questions to, somebody to argue, cuss, scream, and fight with, which is half the fun sometimes, right? So when you can even take guys that are good racers that are just like Casey said, technology. If they're behind on what's going on, it doesn't matter how hard they work, how much they spend. You either have to hire somebody or hope that somebody comes along and is like, here, let me help you. So unless it's a competitor, I try to help anybody that asks for race car knowledge, right? Because like all the old school guys, right? I mean, you got my dad, you got David Umscheid, you got Keith Reithmar, you got all those guys like that, right? They're still around. They're still smart guys. Those are racers. Mm-hmm. But if they're not at the racetrack, and they've already paid their dues, they've already passed on a tremendous amount of knowledge, right? So I kind of feel like it's our turn to try to help the next generation, because all these kids that are renting rides, if those guys that are the crew chiefs on those cars disappear, who's the next guy to work on them? That's I mean, right. you can walk up on teams and what's the kid doing? He's on his phone in the air conditioning while there's a team of 5 guys working on the car. Mm. You have to, as a racer, not as a race car driver, if you want to consider yourself a racer, you need to know what's going on with your car, what changes are being made, how it affects the car, and it makes you a more well-rounded race car driver, in my opinion. Yeah. And there's not a lot of that. Let me rephrase that. There's not a lot of that on the touring series or the larger scale late model races. Yeah. You can go to a bunch of local tracks and see guys still giving their all, blood, sweat, and tears, and every penny they made in the last month is in that race car. Without somebody to help them along with a little bit of knowledge, they end up becoming really stagnant. And if they pick up the phone and call anybody, it's, how much do you want to pay me?
Yeah.
Not let me pass on some knowledge. And so I'm kind of in that space now, like, what do I do to help make sure this is still going at some semblance of the level that it is now? We've seen late model racing take a nosedive. I think it's starting to trend back in the correct direction. But like Casey said, I hate to keep saying that. I know he brought my name up, but I hate to keep – we talk about this stuff all the time because everybody has the same concerns. It's not just him. It's the majority of the guys in the pit area. Mm-hmm. So it's something that has to be addressed, and it's not – I can't say it needs to be done if I'm not willing to do the work. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. And I hope I'm doing right by the people I'm trying to help in the sport itself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you really are. And I mean, the whole thing is, Chris, I think one of the things that really pisses me off a lot of times, you know, people want to beat up NASCAR, and that's great. I mean, beat them up. Yeah, it's different. I mean, it's not the way it used to be. But, I mean, you, me, I mean, we've been at this for so damn long. Short track racing ain't the same either. And that's why I always tell people, it's like, look, you want to beat up NASCAR and you're a short track fan, take a look at what the hell we're doing. We're not doing stuff the way we used to do it. And that's exactly what you were just talking about.
Yep. No, you're 100% correct. You kind of have to accept what we have as the best thing there is, because it is. Now, you can take your nostalgia and talk about that on Saturday nights while you're drinking with your buddy and not at a racetrack, because it makes a good story. But they're not facts. You're remembering it the way you want to remember it.
Right.
Find me one generation that didn't say, these damn kids, right?
Yep.
Every single generation does it. I'm not a huge NASCAR fan because I think for the most part the races are relatively boring to me. I will watch the road courses and some of the short tracks. Mm-hmm. But when I can click 2 channels over and watch wedge cars at, Eldora, that's a no-brainer what I'm watching. We all know that the best race car drivers, very few of them end up on TV on Saturday or Sunday.
That's right.
The guys who write the big checks end up on TV on Saturday or Sunday. Yeah. That's not to say that some of them that aren't there aren't great and aren't some of the best drivers. Yeah. But, I mean, you can look down the entry list in any of those 3 races that are going to happen any NASCAR weekend, and you can pick out 10, 15 drivers that have no business being in any of those races.
Amen.
Well, guess what? Nature of the beast is what it is.
Yep.
Write the check and put yourself on TV or quit complaining about it.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
So, Chris, talk about the development of Seneca. Casey was talking about a couple of different cars and or manufacturers of the cars, the Hamkeys and the Senecas and some of the Port City stuff that's going through there. Talk about your relationship with Seneca, because it seems like you got that car figured out. He was talking about 2 bump stops versus 4 bunk stops, and we got into that discussion, which I still, don't fully understand and don't claim to understand at all. But talk about your relationship with your chassis builder, because it seems like you've got to have one if you want to have the most updated stuff on these race cars.
You do. You really do, right? So Terry Seneca is an awesome individual. He works really hard. His car, the Seneca cars are just different overall. The front suspension theory design is different from everything else. The rear suspension is as well. Makes them, you can really fine tune them a lot as long as you're in the ballpark. But if you get outside of the window, you can become your own worst nightmare, right? So we're constantly working on trying to make it more forgiving, because they are so tunable. I mean, you'll see. I was a complete bag of shit in the super late model race that Casey won. I mean, there's no way to mince words. If you suck, say you suck. Augie Grill walked up to me afterwards and said, "Man, what happened?" I said, "We sucked." That's the truth.
Yeah.
So we thought it was pretty good prior to that, and my pro car was almost identical to my super. I'm like, oh, what do I've got another 100 laps of this. I wasn't looking forward to it. So, but they are, if you keep them right, they're excellent race cars, and anybody's going to say the exact same thing I'm about to say about their chassis manufacturer. It's the best thing going. If I didn't think it was, I'd have something else, right? They all cost about the same. We like working with Terry. He's a great guy. Obviously, Mike Garvey works with me. That takes a tremendous amount of load off of me because he does it every day. So I can concentrate more on driving and just offer opinions as needed, or what I think needs to be changed. And I have something to discuss it with. But the cars overall, I mean, they're excellent. There's zero complaints. And yes, it's no secret. Everybody knows Seneca cars generally have a bump stop on all 4 corners. So where Casey was talking about bump stop timing in 2 versus 4, you definitely have to think about the car different, and not necessarily the same way you would work on another super late model when you're making changes. So you can't just run to the next guy. I can't run over to Casey. He can't run over to me. If I'm struggling and he's great, I can't go ask him, "Hey, what do you got?" Because what he has doesn't matter.
It's different. Yeah.
And the inverse is also true as well. So it really doesn't matter. If you don't have the same car, it's irrelevant.
Yeah. So how cool was it for you, for both of you guys? I mean, Casey mentioned it, but I mean, for us, I mean, the knock on us is, no pavement racing in Texas, blah, blah, blah. But this past weekend, for you to win that championship again, and for him to get out there and do what he did, a lot of folks think that we are irrelevant, but it's been you guys that continue. I mean, just year after year, you guys go over there and keep Texas on the map. And I mean, how cool for both of you guys, I mean, in your opinion, to carry that Texas flag.
So you're right. That part of it is neat, right? It's fun to be able to if you're going to say who's the asphalt super late model racers in Texas, you're going to hear 3 names, right? Those 2 and Logan Bearden.
That's it.
There's probably other guys, and no disrespect if I forgot to mention somebody, but that's what you're going to hear, right? There's 3 guys from a popular. How many people are in this state? A lot.
A shitload.
Right. So yeah, exactly. So no, it's neat to be like everybody knows. You see drivers all over, and you're like, where's that guy from? I don't know. When they see us, they're like, oh, y'all are from Texas, right? Because half of the way we talk, the other half. I mean, I'm easy. I act like a 12-year-old all the time. So, it's cool.
Yeah, that's true.
It's also frustrating.
Oh.
Because, we're driving, Casey's driving further than me if we're going east. But, I mean, it's 550 miles one way, so it's an 1,100-mile round trip to my, air quote, home track. Hopefully Gina shortens that drive up by about 70 miles. But
yeah.
So, but I mean, no, it's neat. I mean, you can go anywhere and they're like, oh, y'all are those guys from Texas. You're those guys from Texas, no matter where we go. It doesn't matter what state, what country we're in. Everybody knows we're from Texas. So, yeah, that part of it's a little cool. But other than that, We're just another car on the track trying to do the same thing as the other 30 or 40 guys are trying to do.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, so Chris, so the last time that we really got to see you was when you were on Lost Speedways at the San Antonio Speedway Edition, talking about the loss of the late model racing in Texas. Couple of questions built into one. One, how did you end up on that deal? Did they call you? You call them, and then what kind of feedback did you get from the racing community after you were on there?
So one, I've known Matthew Dillner for a long time. Great dude, hard worker. He called me. When he initially called me, I said, hey, I'm not the right guy, right? So me being from Texas and kind of growing up at San Antonio Speedway is the way I see it. I didn't want to be disrespectful of all the other racers that raced at San Antonio who I looked up to, right? Who were generally from the San Antonio area. So I tried to get them in touch with Nick. I tried to get them in touch with Tom. I tried to get them in touch with anybody else to keep me out of the mix, if I'm going to be honest. And he said, no, I still want you to come. I still want you to be here. So you saw maybe 30 seconds to a minute of what it looks like to be hungover from the Riverwalk doing an interview in San Antonio Speedway. Had a great time both days, though, by the way.
I'm sure you did.
So he called me. He tried to get me there, and then I didn't hear from him for a month or two, and then he called one day and said, hey, this Sunday. I'm like, Sunday? I mean, Saturday is available. Let's go. So that's what we did. And it was a good time. That was probably an hour-long interview cut down into 30 seconds or a minute.
Yeah.
And which is kind of unfortunate. I understand why they have to do it during the editing process. They're making a compact show and trying to pack as much information into as little time as possible. It's bad because I thought that there was a lot of information. It's not bad. There was a lot of information that got discussed about the track and the racers and that kind of stuff that people will probably never see. Mm-hmm. Stuff that I'm passionate about, right? Guys that at the time I didn't even like. But you look back now and you're like, man, these guys were just competitors like I was. They were trying to do the same thing as I was. And we didn't, I won't say we disliked each other, but there was always tension, right? Because it's your competitor. But you look back now and you're like, wow, we're the exact same. I should be friends with those guys. They shouldn't be my enemies. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe that's what you call a little bit of maturity, which I don't have much of. So maybe that's not what it is. I'm not sure.
No, I'm right there with you, man, because I did the TWS one, and we talked for a long time, and they condensed it all down. And the funny thing is, so many people are reaching out to me, and they're like, man, Davidson was so spot on with San Antonio. I'm like, y'all saw me on that other one, right? but they're all about what you did. They're all about what you did, and I'm like, oh, okay.
But I'd say I'm better looking, but we know that's not the case, so I don't know what it is.
Well, I don't know about that, Chris. You look like a badass sitting over there on that chair right there at Turn Up. And when you said disgusting, I mean, that's one of those things where they put that thing together when you said it's disgusting, and there was nothing else said. I'm like, dude, that's how you build a drama right there. But talk about that. I mean, seriously, because it really does suck. I mean, all these tracks, that was a San Antonio thing, but I mean, how the hell, we probably asked you this before, but how did we lose this? And this is one thing that I'm really embracing about getting to know so many people in Alabama from being over at Mobile. They just love this. They've got all these tracks. They love what they have. I think in Texas, we are the best example of, man, you better appreciate what the hell you have, because you look around and it is gone that fast.
You're exactly right. So there is no answer, right? Short of somebody long on money and short on reasons to keep it. Mm-hmm. That's how you get racing back in Texas, right? It's all money. There's no late models. There's no whatever. We don't care about that. I mean, I personally care about that, but I don't care about that in as it relates to the sport as a whole. There's lots of people that don't want to scrape mud off their car, even though we love watching dirt track racing, right? So we need asphalt tracks. I think we need asphalt tracks, and I'd agree there's a small subset of the population that would probably concur. So what? Yep. I mean, it's a bunch of money. Really, that's it. You got a couple $1 million in your pocket you want to pull out, Rodney? We'll gladly spend it for you.
Well,
No?
Okay, let me start digging. Let me see what I can find.
So yeah, no, other than that, yeah, I think Gina's kind of showing with the mobile thing. She's basically given mouth to mouth to that facility day after day after day and killing herself to make things work. I mean, she revived Houston. I understand that it was with a lot of help, right?
Sure.
You guys helped. There's a bunch of people that participate, but she's spearheading the operation. And so now she's revived one track and she's working on track 2.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody in the country does that. Damn sure nobody in the Southeast.
Yeah.
Like, she has single-handedly revived 2 asphalt facilities. I don't even understand how you can begin to complain about anything she does. Is there going to be growing pains and problems? Sure. Could I be one of the guys that bitches about her next week? Absolutely. Is that what should go on? Absolutely not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I wish her all the success in the world and hope she makes a tremendous amount of money, because I know the work that's being put in. You guys know, y'all know a bunch of guys that have worked at racetracks. There's not a bunch of money flowing out, right? to the owners, the promoters, the whoever, save
Right.
for a couple tracks in the country. So I hope there's some kind of reward for the effort that she's put forth, right? And Bo as well, because even if he wasn't doing anything, you got to live with somebody working like that. And I know he does do quite a bit. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's true. I'm friends with Gina, right? But it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't do anything other than clap my hands and say, good job, go girl. I don't have time to come help. Let me know if you need anything, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the people that can, there are people over there helping her, from what I understand,
Mm-hmm.
at least some. So that's good.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of how do you keep the momentum going to reopen a racetrack, because it's on its way, but you don't hear very many stories of successful track reopenings.
Yeah.
San Antonio, there was an honest attempt made by 2 guys who put their balls on the line. Didn't work because the racers didn't do what they said they were going to do. So how do you – she's gambling every day she walks in the gate when it's race day. Am I going to have a car count?
Mm-hmm.
And I pray that she does.
Yeah. Yep.
Because she's not fiscally motivated, I can tell you that. She'd quit a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Not about money. Ain't no
No.
doubt about that. Ain't no doubt about that. All right, so Chris, we're into big race season. I mean, your thoughts? We're in snowball season, so I mean, you're just such a dominant figure. I mean, you're the spokesperson for Texas racing right now. I mean, you're the one that tells it like it is, and have Casey going again. I mean, that is so cool. But for you, I mean, what are you doing moving forward? Are you snowflake and snowball? What's happening for 14?
Well, I'm completely honest, I don't know. Have nothing. The schedule is wide open from now till we get back to Irwindale. You may see me at 10 different places. You may see me at none. I'm not sure. There's a couple good paying races in South Florida. One at 417 and one at Citrus County, I believe. One pays $20,000 to win. One pays $10,000 to win. 4 tires, 100 laps.
Nice.
Wow.
That's what a super late model. That's what a super late model race is supposed to be.
Should be
4
like that.
tires, $20,000 to win. Half a day on Friday and all day Saturday. That's what it should be. It doesn't have to be 10 or 20,000 to win every week, but that's how this late model racing should be, right?
Right.
I tell everybody, 1 day per 100 laps. You only want to run a 100-lap race, you only get race cars on the track for 1 day. This 2, 3, 4 day testing shit is half of what's killing the sport. You see people posting all week from Pensacola, from Winchester, well, guys, I know you want to win, but when you've got a guy at home with his car in his garage, he's not going to pull it out if there's 2 18-wheelers at the track and 12 guys each working on a car. He doesn't feel like he has a chance, even if he does.
That's right. That's right.
So get off my soapbox again.
That's all right, man.
Don't know.
I love it.
Probably going to go run a race or 2 in South Florida. Slim chance that I'll be at the Derby. I heard Casey's opinion on the tires. I don't happen to 100% on that one fact. If I won the race, I probably would be fine with it too. There's always a tire situation at the Derby.
Yeah.
Like, take me out of the picture, right? Remove me. I've said it before. You got a guy that's badass there all year, and he shows up at the Derby, and then all of a sudden he sucks. No, he didn't get worse.
Yeah.
Or he's good on one set of tires, he's bad on another set.
Yeah.
I don't think Hoosier's a big fan of me to begin with, so I don't really care
Yeah.
to speak my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
So no big deal. They have a tire situation. We all know. I hope they get it resolved. Tim Bryant works really hard, and I honestly believe Hoosier is probably working really hard. But there's a problem that needs to be rectified. Hopefully it does, right? So I'll probably vote with my wallet and stay home that week, or watch. Maybe I'll sponsor a couple cars. Actually, I already know I am. So I'm still going to help in the way I see fit. I just it's hard enough as is to roll the dice on, is the stagger going to take off? Are things going to change? Is one set of tires going to be different? You'll get guys that'll come on your show and they'll say not Casey, but other guys that'll tell you the polar opposite of what I'm telling you.
Right.
Then they'll hang up the phone. I'll see them next Saturday, and they'll echo my comment to me in my face. Well, I don't know what to do about that, right? If they're going to tell you one thing and tell me another, I don't know which one they believe is true, but I know what I believe is true.
Yeah.
So no, I probably won't be there. Hopefully they get it all sorted out before they get to that race, because everybody, including the tire manufacturer, puts a ton of work in to making that race be successful. So I hope for everybody's sake it is sorted out and that's all put to the side and you can just concentrate on the racing. But
yeah,
it's an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. So Chris, got to ask you one last thing. Any thoughts for you? I mean, these Outlaws, man, it's a rage. I mean, they're great over there. I mean, Dad has one. I know you couldn't drive that one, but without some modifications. But any thoughts for you to do that? I mean, I like that class. I'm old. I remember that body style. I remember those cars.
Well,
any thought for you to get one of those bad boys?
Maybe in the future. I mean, let's be honest. It's a late model just like I have with a different body. My dad's car is one of my old cars.
Nice.
So they're the exact same thing as what we're running, a little less tire, a lot more body.
Yep.
And they've got a couple different engine combinations. It's a great class to move up from, let's say, trucks, or to get you ready for a late model. A little more body than you probably need if you nobody knows fast as a super late model. They look fast sitting still. You can go buy a used car for really, really cheap and make it really competitive with just some work, because there are no bump stops and they have some minimum spring rules. Some things, when they put those rules together, they did a good job of keeping the price component out of from affecting the competition level too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's a great class. I love that class. I hope it takes off, and I hope they don't let it turn into a super late model, because that's what happens with every class that's an economy class. Slowly but surely, it migrates to the Premier Series, and then we start all over, and we went from an IMCA modified, now we have a limited modified, and a B mod, and a C mod, and an E mod, and wait a minute. Why did we have to do all that? Why didn't we just stick with the original rules? Kind of like the crate engine rules. Can we just pick some and stay?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the progression. I mean, we always see that. So what do you think of factory stocks? Should I go down that road?
Hey, I think factory stocks, bombers, street stocks, whatever you want to call them, if you give me something where I've got a Camaro and a Monte Carlo and a Nova in the same field, that's a race I'm watching, because odds are that's going to be the best race I'm going to see all night.
That's how we grew up, man. That's what we used to watch.
Absolutely.
That is what we used to watch, man. Good stuff, dude. Congratulations on that championship. And, man, as always, thanks for the time, dude. Love the candid conversation. Always the best.
For sure.
Absolutely,
All
man.
right, guys, well, you keep doing what you're doing. I think everybody says this every time. It is noticed. It is appreciated. If you, even if I say bad face,
And I think Alan Alexander is wanting to, yeah, he wants you to drive his factory stock. How about that?
Okay. I'm in.
There it is. Right there. Good stuff, man. Appreciate the time, brother. Love you, man. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You got
Keep
it.
up.
You bet. Chris Davidson. Man, I love it. And that's the whole thing. Hashtag Real Race Talk. 2 weeks in a row with three people right there. I mean, even Casey. Casey calling it like it is. And I mean, that it's the same thing. And people just don't realize it. I think they don't want to realize it. I mean, like Cody Brusso said last weekend or last week, it's like it's totally obvious, but people just don't want to realize what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what's the old saying is everybody thinks their shit don't stink.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. I mean, and it hopefully it's going to be an interesting snowball this year. It's going to be fun.
The tire deal is going to be an underrated storyline for that deal that I think lots of people are not gonna appreciate till we get there. You cannot bring week old tires that had a chance right out of the oven. You cannot bring week old tires to the snowball derby.
No, and that's
you cannot.
And it's like Cody talked about it, and I mean, Chris was kind of hitting there around as well. I mean, there's ways that you're going to get the good stuff, but anyway, that it'll be fun. It is big race season, whether it be dirt or asphalt, and I'm looking forward to it. I cannot wait. It all starts with Cotton Bowl and 37, and yeah, man, let's do this. And we will continue to have hashtag Real Race Talk on this program. I was actually talking to someone at the end of last week's show, and they're like, have you ever thought of, backing it off a little bit? I'm like, are you kidding?
Why?
We're the only forum that will allow it. Everybody else wants to be correct. And again, I understand, political correctness and all that, but we call it like it is, or we let them call it like it is. That's what we do.
I mean, we get opinionated about different stuff too, but a lot of times we let the guests take it in the direction that they want to take it in, so that they can get their point across the best way that they can. And it's handled differently by different people, but for the most part, that's the reason we have all these downloads and have all these people listening to this great show and watching on YouTube. Hopefully, as the numbers continue to go up on YouTube. But yeah, it's a fun deal, man. I mean, I think we really try to just hit the nail on the head and be Real Race Talk like we talked about since day one. 5 years of Real Race Talk. There's a reason why it's called that way.
Yeah, it just keeps getting better each and every week there. And I love the conversation there because Chris, I mean, he called it. I mean, that was the one thing that I noticed when he won that championship. I mean, he came out and they're going on and on, Alan Turner, championship, whatever. He's like, yeah, I'm going to head back to Texas. I'm not all about championships. I just want to race. Wants
to race, wants to win. And you can't blame him for that.
Yeah. And it's so weird with Chris, as long as we've known him, to see him at this point, kind of backing off there. Don't know if he's going to be at the Snowball. I will say that if he does not get to race either, pro or super or both, it's going to be a shame, because that dude needs to be in the field of both of those races if possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy deal, but I like the rules for those big money races in Florida. 417. If you watch Sunshine State Racing there on Facebook, they broadcast some of those big races, from Showtime Speedway and 417 Speedway. They broadcast some of those races. And you talk about some intense, quote unquote, weekly shows for super late models down there in Florida.
Yeah.
Central Florida's got it going on down there.
Yeah. That's our friend Jen. I mean, she checks in, Jen Brinson. She checks in here from time to time, but good stuff. Great. I didn't mind waiting till Tuesday. Good. Worth the wait.
Yeah, one day is not going to hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, y'all. Have a great week. We will do this again next Monday. Who knows who we're going to talk to next? Man, we're on a roll.
Oh,
right
it
here.
might be Tuesday. I got to talk to you about that. So
it's okay.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Get yourself out to Cotton Bowl. It's going to be fun out there. This is hashtag Real Race Talk from Texas. Have a great week. This is the Revved Up Sports Show. Be well, everybody.